The moment he asked for her call sign as a joke, he had no idea the woman in front of him had once saved an entire platoon with a single shot. Captain. Derek Hammond stood in the officers' club with a drink in one hand and overconfidence in the other, surrounded by fellow Marines who were swapping stories about their latest deployments. The woman at the bar had been sitting alone for the past 20 minutes, nursing what looked like ginger ale. Her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp, the kind of sharp that comes from seeing things most people only have nightmares about. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, and a faded jacket with no insignia. Nothing to suggest she'd ever worn a uniform. To Hammond, she looked like a contractor's wife, maybe a journalist, someone who'd wandered into the wrong building. "Hey," he called out, his voice carrying that particular brand of charm that comes from too many successful ops and not enough humility. "You military? Or just visiting?" She glanced over, her expression unreadable. "Does it matter?" Hammond grinned, mistaking her calm for shyness. "Come on, humor me. If you were one of us, what would your call sign be? Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening." The bar went quieter than it should have. One of the older sergeants near the pool table had stopped mid-shot, his cue hovering. In the air, another Marine, a lieutenant with salt and pepper hair, slowly set down his beer and turned to watch. They knew something Hammond didn't. They recognized the slight build, the weathered hands, the way she held herself like gravity had less pull on her than on everyone else. "Sticky six," she said simply, her voice carrying no pride. No theatrics, just fact. The name hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Hammond's smile faltered. He'd heard that call sign before, whispered in the corridors of Quantico, mentioned in hushed tones during briefings about Helmand Province. Sticky six. The sniper who'd held a position for 11 hours straight during Operation Moshtarak. The one who'd taken an impossible shot through a sandstorm to eliminate a high-value target who'd been coordinating attacks that had killed dozens of coalition forces. The Marine who'd saved an entire company from walking into an ambush by spotting enemy movement that satellite imagery had missed. He'd assumed Sticky Six was a man. Most people did. You single quotes read ... Hammond's voice trailed off as the mathematics of his mistake calculated themselves across his face. "Captain Sarah Vance," she said, extending her hand. "Retired. And yes, I was military. Scout sniper, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines." Hammond shook her hand, and it felt like shaking hands with history itself. The other Marines in the club had begun to drift closer, forming a loose semicircle of respect and curiosity. The sergeant who'd frozen at the pool table walked over, his face transformed by something between awe and gratitude. "Ma'am," he said, his voice rough. "Sergeant Mike Torres. I was with Alpha Company, winter of 2010, Marja." Vance's expression softened just slightly. "Torres, you were the radio man who kept calling in our position adjustments, even after the antenna got hit. You remember that?" "I remember everyone who kept their head when the world was ending around them." Torres's eyes were suddenly bright. "You saved my entire squad that day. We were about to walk into a kill zone. We had no idea there were 40 Taliban fighters dug in 200 meters ahead. Your spotter called it in, said you counted them through your scope, one by one. You took out their machine gunner, the one commanding the ambush. We got out clean because of you." The story spread through the club like wildfire. Within minutes, Marines were gathering, some wanting to shake her hand, others just wanting to be near someone who represented the best of what they aspired to be. But Vance remained seated, uncomfortable with the attention, her hands wrapped around her glass. Like it was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Hammond, to his credit, sat down beside her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "That was condescending of me." "You didn't know," Vance replied. "Most people don't." "Why don't they? You should have medals, recognition." "I have medals," she interrupted gently. "I have recognition from the people who matter. What I don't have is the need to wear them on my sleeve." She paused, her eyes distant. "The shot everyone talks about, the one through the sandstorm, that wasn't skill. That was desperation wrapped in training and a prayer. I took that shot, knowing I might hit one of our own if the wind shifted even a fraction. I took it because not taking it meant watching 43 Marines die in an ambush." Her voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. And Hammond realized he was witnessing something rare. Warrior wrestling with the weight of choices that had no good options, only less terrible ones. I couldn't sleep for months after that. Deployment, Vance continued. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the calculations. Wind speed, humidity, target movement, the curvature of the bullet's path. I'd replay it, wondering if I'd gotten lucky or if I'd actually been good enough. The truth is somewhere in between, and that's what haunts you. Knowing your best might have just been fortunate timing. Torres, still standing nearby, spoke up. Man, I don't know if this helps, but that shot, it didn't just save us that day. Corporal Jennings, he was in our squad. He went home, got married, has 3 kids now. Rodriguez became a teacher. Miller runs a youth program in Detroit, keeping kids out of gangs. Ear's shot echoed forward. It kept echoing. Vance looked up at him, and for the first time since the conversation started, something resembling peace crossed her features. She hadn't just saved 43 lives that day. She'd saved all the lives those Marines would touch, all the children. They'd raise all the good they'd do in the decades to come. The mathematics of that were incalculable. Hammond watched the exchange, feeling something shift in his understanding of leadership. He'd spent years thinking command was about decisiveness, and strength about projecting confidence even in chaos. But here was a different kind of strength, the strength to carry doubt, to question yourself while still pulling the trigger when lives depended on it. Vance hadn't just been a skilled sniper. She'd been someone willing to bear the weight of impossible choices so others wouldn't have to. The evening continued, but the tone had changed. Marines approached Vance not with bravado, but with gratitude, sharing stories of operations she'd supported, lives she'd protected from distances so great she'd never seen their faces. She listened to each one, her expression a mixture of pride and sorrow, accepting their thanks while carrying the invisible burden of the lives she hadn't been able to save. As the night wound down and the crowd dispersed, Hammond found himself alone with Vance again at the bar. What do you do now? He asked. I teach, she said. High school physics and mathematics. I help kids understand trajectories and vectors, though I never tell them why I'm so good at calculating them. She smiled faintly. Turns out the skills that make you a good sniper, patience, observation, understanding systems, they make you a decent teacher too. Do you miss it? The cores? Vance considered the question carefully. I miss the people. I miss knowing my purpose every morning when I woke up, but I don't miss the weight. I carried a rifle that weighed 15 pounds and gear that added another 70. That wasn't the heavy part. The heavy part was knowing that every decision I made, every shot I took or didn't take, would ripple forward in ways I couldn't predict or control. She looked at Hammond directly. You'll understand that weight eventually, Captain. Command isn't about having the answers. It's about being willing to act without them and live with the consequences either way. Hammond nodded slowly, the lesson settling into him like sediment after a storm. As Vance stood to leave, she turned back. And Hammond? Next time you wonder about someone's call sign, remember that the quietest people in the room are often the ones who've earned the right to be loud. They just choose silence instead. She walked out into the night, leaving behind a room full of Marines who understood a little more about courage, the kind that doesn't need recognition, the kind that carries its scars quietly and still shows up to serve in whatever way it can. Because real strength doesn't demand acknowledgement, it simply exists, waiting in the margins, ready to step forward when the moment requires it. And sometimes the most powerful shot ever taken isn't the one that hits its target, but the one that echoes forward through decades of lives lived, fully because someone was brave enough to take it. If this story moved you, drop a comment below about a time someone's quiet strength changed your perspective. And subscribe, because every week I bring you stories about the everyday heroes who remind us what courage really looks like. See you in the next one.